You're crouched at a riverbank 7,000 years ago, throat cracked, thirst shaking your hands. You don't drink yet. First you check the color, the smell, the movement on the surface, anything that separates a safe drink from a parasite that could be living inside you within the month. Now look at where you're sitting. A tap, a filter, a bottle already tested. So how did ancient humans, no purification systems, no way to test a water source before drinking it, survive on untreated water for nearly the whole of human history? Dehydration could kill in days, but the water itself, the thing that was supposed to save you, could kill you slower and just as certainly through parasites and bacteria with no names yet. Every single sip was a bet against both clocks running at once. In 2023, parasitologist Elisabeth Barsch and her team at the Natural History Museum Vienna examined 35 preserved human coprolites pulled from the ancient salt mines of Hallstatt, Austria. Some samples dated back over 3,000 years, spanning both the Bronze and Iron Ages. 91% contained the eggs of roundworm and whipworm. Not most, almost all. Picture that for a second. Nearly every person who worked that mine, across 5 centuries of use, was carrying a living population of parasites in their own gut. Not as a rare misfortune, not as the unlucky few, as the baseline condition of being alive. Those infections don't usually put you in a grave overnight. They drain you for years instead. Anemia, malnutrition, a body quietly running a deficit it never gets to pay off. Everyone assumes a burden like that would have wiped a population out within a generation or two. The truth is stranger. These communities kept mining, kept working, kept reproducing for centuries with worms as a permanent houseguest. Survival didn't mean staying clean. It meant learning to function while carrying a cost most of us would now consider a medical emergency. So how does an entire population absorb that kind of damage for centuries without collapsing? Part of the answer was underground. Everyone assumes early humans just gambled with whatever river, pond, or puddle happened to be nearby. The truth is more deliberate than that. In 2012, dendrochronologist Willy Tegel and his team dated the timber linings of 4 wooden water wells unearthed in eastern Germany. The oak beams had been felled between 5469 and 5098 BC, using 151 individual timbers preserved intact in waterlogged soil, over 7,000 years old. The joinery was tight, load-bearing, precise, advanced enough to predate the arrival of bronze tools in the region by close to 2,000 years. No metal yet, no wheel, no writing. And still, someone had worked out that groundwater sitting below the surface was worth the effort of digging for, lining, and maintaining, instead of gambling on whatever happened to be flowing past their feet that day. That's not luck. That's engineering, built by people history never bothered to name. Here's where it gets stranger, though. Technology solved part of the problem. Fermentation solved a different piece of it entirely. In the city of around 2050 BC, a brewer named Alulu logged a clay receipt for 5 silos of beer, close to 4.5 liters, issued as part of a temple worker's daily ration. Centuries later, and hundreds of miles away, laborers building the pyramids at Giza were receiving over a gallon of beer a day. According to research published by the British Museum, add in the bread and onions handed out alongside it, and that daily ration worked out to roughly 2,500 to 3,000 calories, almost exactly what a modern adult needs to get through a full day of labor. And this wasn't unique to one river valley. Versions of the same basic fix, boiling grain into a fermented, shelf-stable staple, show up independently across early farming societies on more than one continent. Everyone assumes that ration was a perk, a small mercy tossed to keep workers happy. The truth cuts the other way. Boiling the mash and fermenting the result killed off many of the pathogens raw water carried, turning an unreliable liquid into something calorie-dense and stable enough to drink daily without the same odds of dying from it. That beer wasn't a treat stacked on top of survival. For long stretches of ancient life, it functioned as survival itself. But engineering and culture weren't the only things adapting. Biology was quietly doing its own work underneath all of it, with nobody steering. In 2014, anthropologist Stephanie Schnorr and her team at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology sequenced the gut bacteria of 43 members of the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer community in Tanzania. Compared to urban Italian subjects living a modern, sanitized lifestyle, the Hadza carried a noticeably wider range of bacterial species, including families like Prevotella and Treponema, now rare or missing entirely from a typical Western gut. Their internal ecosystem looked shaped by generations of exposure to exactly the kind of pathogen load a modern gut would never have to face. This wasn't the body simply tolerating bad water out of necessity. It was something closer to negotiation, playing out invisibly across thousands of generations. Quietly, without anyone deciding it should happen, biology rewrote what normal even meant for a human digestive system. And here's the uncomfortable part. By that standard, the industrialized, filtered. Hand-sanitized gut most of us carry today isn't the healthy baseline of the species. It's the outlier. So the real answer was never one clever trick. It was 3 separate defenses, stacked on top of each other, none of them designed as a system by anyone. Engineering reached for cleaner sources underground. Culture found a way to sterilize what couldn't be avoided on the surface. Biology adapted to tolerate whatever slipped through both of those filters anyway. None of it was flawless. The worms sitting in those Hallstatt coprolites are proof enough of that. But layered together, generation after generation, it was enough. Enough to carry the species from a contaminated riverbank all the way to you. You're still that same person at the riverbank, still thirsty, still reaching for water. Only now it already came from a treatment plant you'll never see. Tested overnight by people you'll never meet. Invisible to you the entire time. No parasite. No gamble. No cost you'll ever have to think about before your first sip in the morning. It's worth sitting with this, though. Recent Who figures put the number of people who still lack that safety net, safely managed drinking water at home, at roughly 2 billion. For a huge share of the world, the ancient bet against contaminated water never actually ended. It just quietly moved next door, out of view of everyone who no longer has to make it. Clean water was never a convenience you were simply born into. It's 100,000 years of dead ends, dysentery, and quiet trial and error, engineered, fermented, and slowly bred into the species, filtered all the way down into a single tap that most of the species still doesn't get to take for granted.